Terry, as always, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, thanks very much for the invitation, my friend. I always appreciate talking to you. And I love you, so it's easy
Yes.
for me.
Well, yes. You don't pick up the phone for many, but I'm glad you pick up the phone for me. I understand. I'm not a bill collector.
Always. Yeah, I don't answer them.
I want to get your thoughts about your memories of David Stern, the commissioner of the NBA, who passed away just recently. He really left a big legacy in the NBA. What do you remember most about your dealings with Stern when you were a reporter?
What made it interesting, Jay, was that because Brian McIntyre was running PA for the PR for the NBA then, and Chicago guy, and we got to be really good friends. We always went on with in New York when they'd come to town. We'd make sure we see each other and so forth. And I really had great access to David. And who knew? I didn't know if David would want to see me, want to talk, or whatever when I would run across him, and he always did. And I even after the lottery, the Patrick Ewing, where there was a lot of talk about they put the Knicks envelope in dry ice and then picked it out of there so they'd get Ewing. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I'm thinking. I saw him later on. I tweeted about it. I said, someday, David, I'm gonna have to see those. You really got a pair on you. I mean, if that's true, and he just looked at me and said, they dismissed me. And Jay, I had two people who were willing to, who thought for sure that was right, and then I had other people who thought that never happened. So I just dropped it all. It wasn't a great way to get started with him, but he and I became pretty good friends. And what you learned about David Stern is that, at least what I learned from him, is that he understood more about the NBA than the NBA understood about itself at that time. Because if you recall back in the early 80s, and it just wasn't anywhere near what this is. I mean, other sports have now tried to go international. Have tried to the football plays in London, and that's never going to happen. You're not. You don't want a franchise in London, but I mean, what the NBA did, it's all traced back to him because he understood at a time when most baseball was fighting with its players, football was constantly fighting with its players. The NBA and Stern's idea was to go out of the way to promote them. I mean, that's where the dream team came from. That's where a lot of ideas that nobody ever thought. There's no way the pros are ever going to be in the yeah, actually they are. And I mean, he had all these ideas floating around his head. He had all these notions that people had never heard from a commissioner before. Had never thought of this. And he looked at a league that was building. And he had Larry Bird, not bad. Magic Johnson, not bad. Mm-hmm. He had guys in there that were pretty good players, and the fierce Celtics Lakers rivalry in the 80s was just great. One of my favorites all time in sports. And Stern understood what it meant. And then of course when Michael came along and it got even better. But he understood that the most important thing was the players. It wasn't you, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. It was the guys playing the game. If you want to promote a sport, if you want to make this a international game, if you want attention and everything else, you've got to work with those players. What it's going to cost you, what you want to do. But I always felt he was ahead of the curve on that kind of stuff because everybody else fought with their players. Baseball players fought, football, all of them were fighting with owners over money and everything else. And he just sort of had this idea of what this could become. And I think he never voiced it. He never said to me, "Hey, by the way, idiot, this is going to be a game you're not going to believe someday." He never said that. He didn't go around bragging about it. He didn't whisper in somebody's ear and say, "This is going to be something, man. You just wait and see." But he knew it. He knew it in conversations, and even as he went on, there was just little things he said and did. And I mean, there's never been a commissioner in my lifetime anywhere close to him in terms of how he did his business, what his ideas were. And yet was media accessible. If you want to talk to David Stern, he was on Radio Rows at the finals. He was around sometimes for the Super Bowl. He would just made himself available. And just make sure he was around. He'd sit down and talk to you. And how many commissioners today do you think want to sit down and talk to you?
Yeah, not many at all. As we talked to Terry Boers with Jonathan Hood on ESPN 1000 and the ESPN app. Here's what I need to know also too: the look of the league before Stern took over in the Larry O'Brien era, because you were a part of that a little bit too. The smoke-filled armories, the drug use that was rampant in the league. What did that look like before Stern took over? Because it was a completely different league once David took over.
Yeah, it was a mess. Yeah, it was a mess. There was all sorts of things going on. And David had his own messes to clear up. He had Latrell's free will fight. He had things to clear up, but he cleaned it up with such a smart way about him. He didn't want it to be people to be talking and writing about it forever. So when something happened, he addressed it. He didn't wait. I'll get back to you in a week. Let me think about what I'm going to do about this. He made sure it ended. Larry O'Brien went and slept somewhere. I mean, whatever was going on in Larry O'Brien's world, I don't know what he thought was going to happen. But, the NBA had the finals were on tape delay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah.
That is not the way you run a league, especially a league that's become what you see today, what you see with the international stars and the $5 billion league. All of this was in David Stern's mind, because I used to sit down and listen to him sometime, and I'd walk away shaking my head. I couldn't quite grasp everything he was saying. But the beauty of him was that he didn't, some commissioners that we know of over the years love to talk down to you. Love to talk down to you like you're just a little goofball and I'm going to dismiss you real quickly. He never did that. He never did that with anybody. And as a matter of fact, he would often take up causes that you might like. He wasn't afraid to even back somebody and say, yeah, you know what, he's right. He's right, and we're going to address this. We're going to take care of this. But he was never above it, and that's what separated him. He had this innate sense about what was right, what was wrong. And we talked about this the other day, that when that issue of Hoop magazine came out, and they had taken off Allen Iverson's neck tattoos, people were outraged. And I remember he came down Radio Row that day, and he was outraged. I'm saying this will never happen again. This is not what we're all about. We're not hiding. We're not running away from the people who play the game. We're running to the people who play the game. And I think that's the sort of thing that pushed him over the top. Because, like I said, the whole world seemed to be fighting with the players. There seemed to be this disagreement, that disagreement. And David went through a lot of stuff, too. And he made some mistakes. I don't think if you called somebody right now in Seattle, they'd still be mad.
Yeah.
They'd still be mad. And I can understand that. I thought it was a great town for basketball. I thought they were terrific. But, things happen, I guess. But did he make mistakes? Sure. All of them did. But in my lifetime, there's never been anybody better than him than what he did. Never. Any sport, you name it, not even close.
The thing that resonates with me the most, Terry, when it comes to David Stern is just how he was a marketing genius in that he saw a league that had a lot of markets. It's one thing to have expansion, but it's another thing to be able to market a star in every city. Every city where the NBA is. Doesn't matter if it's Reggie Miller here, Michael Jordan there, Isaiah Thomas in Detroit, or going out to LA. Whether you're a bad franchise or good franchise, he wanted to make sure he marketed all the stars in those markets, because it doesn't do the league any good when you have if it's so top heavy, where you have the top teams in the East, top teams in the West, and everybody else is garbage. No, he wanted to make sure that each market had a star for you to watch. And I think that says a lot for him from a marketing standpoint.
It did. He did, yeah. And he also knew that before. Well, I think we all sort of knew if you watched them enough, but the NBA didn't have quite as many fans as it does right now. Right. We weren't quite as much interested. Bird and Magic helped a lot in the '80s. That got things going. But when he looked at a game, when he went to games and he looked around, what he would tell people is, "I'm watching the greatest athletes in the world. I don't know if people know this, or I should tell them this, or what I should do, but I'm watching the greatest athletes in the world at what they do." And it just stuck with him from the beginning, Jay. It just was something that was in his mind, and saying, we're going to have this everywhere. This is going to be, people have to understand this. And doing the Olympics thing after all the years of, no, it's not probably, we're not doing it. He was more than willing to put together a dream team. He was behind all of it. He wanted to do it. So, he saw what, you had what some people didn't see, because I don't think there were enough people watching it. I don't think there's really quite as much interest as you might think. I mean, the football was still probably king. Baseball was much bigger then. I mean, the NBA was sort of straggling along, not really a big time, not really like the other sports were. And even because you had Bird and Magic, and that's one of the things he immediately recognized. So what are we doing here? You look at these. Look at what we have here. I mean, he built every little thing all around the guys who played the game, all around it. Not the guys who coached it, not the guys who owned it. He built it around the guys on the court. Because I never thought of it quite that way either. I didn't sit down and think, every night when I go to an NBA game, I'm seeing the best athletes in the world. Well, you are. Mm-hmm. You are. That's exactly what you're saying every night. So, I mean, he had these things in his mind and how he went about piece by piece, team by team, year by year, and did this, made sure this was done, and looked at this, and got the marketing thing going, and all of the stuff he did. I used to say that some guys think they're the smartest guy in the room. Always. I'm sure you know some guys who are like that to this very minute.
Yeah.
Always think that. He was, and he didn't say it, though. He was not one of those guys that would dismiss you because you're an idiot. He could have dismissed me because I was an idiot. So, I mean, he could have done that, but he didn't.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he took the crap, and, I mean, he took whatever it was, and we had a really good relationship, really solid. And how many commissioners could you say I could call up and get a thought from him if I wanted one? And didn't happen very often because I wasn't going to bother him with petty nonsense about the Bulls. But, I mean, at least in that era of the Bulls. But, I mean, there was just something about him that he knew. He just knew what he had. And nobody thought of it that way. Nobody thought of it that way. I didn't think of it that way. I loved basketball always, and I didn't think of it that way. I never looked at it in the 80s and said, man, I'm going to be covering the greatest athletes in the world. No, I'm covering – actually not. I'm covering the Bulls.
Right.
Daily.
Right. Exactly.
Not really. So, I mean, he just knew it, felt it, sensed it, didn't go out of his way to brag, didn't do any of that stuff a lot of commissioners do, and also made himself available. Because Roger Goodell, when something happens in the NFL, you can't find him. You need a search party.
Oh,
and I would not ever want to deal with that guy.
No.
I realize it's the boy, not the all power of sports league. I understand that. But he's a weasel. I don't think anybody ever thought that Stern was. I don't think ever. Did I ever hear anybody say, the guys who covered the league, the old crotchety guys, and everybody else who'd been around forever, they never thought that way of Stern. I mean, generally, when a guy comes in, the guys who've been around for a while, the old line kind of say, oh, what does this guy want? What is he doing? No, nobody ever said that to me. Nobody. And I knew all those guys. Later, some big stars in their own right, but certainly, but not one of those guys thought that or said to me, what's wrong with this guy? Because, when you're writing sports, you run on writers from all over the country. Everybody has a thought, everybody has an opinion, but not one person ever said to me, I think David Stern's crazy. No, they all thought he was so good at what he did. And, I mean, it's very difficult to keep everybody happy, particularly sports reporters. I mean, it's not easy to get their approval and to understand and see and comprehend what he was doing. And that was an art form for him. I mean, to the end, he was still, when he would go out, was still shaking people's hands and greeting them and treating them like human beings. So I think that, he set so many precedents and so many things that were good about him. I mean, this was, when you write the history of all sports, when you sit down someday and somebody I'm sure will write the history of all sports going way back to whenever the hell you want to start, he's included in there. He's included. He is one of the most important sports figures of the century. He absolutely was. There was no question about it, what he did, what he created. And as far as I knew, Jay, nobody was whispering in his ear. It wasn't somebody else's idea. Nobody was saying, okay, here's what, David, let's do this. Because believe me, if that would have been the case, I would have known it.
Yeah,
I would
it
have
certainly
known
wasn't Larry O'Brien because he was sleeping on the job, as you say. He was he was napping. Larry O'Brien.
Yeah, he's sleeping.
And to your point, by the way, and to your point, you talk about Bird and Magic. Well, the magazines had it covered. They say, "Well, this is unique. Look at this. You got East Coast, West Coast. You have a black player versus a white player." This is great marketing, but O'Brien didn't see it, and it took until Stern when he came to the league in '84. He already had Jordan in that year, Hakeem Olajuwon, Barkley, Stockton. That's when he came into the league, and then he looked over and said, "Wait, we got Larry and Magic here too. We could." And then you start seeing more of the commercials and more of the marketing of and the Lakers and the Celtics didn't need marketing, but you want to have the national attention, more so than just the average basketball fan. So he had all that momentum going into his start in '84 for Stern. So that's a hell of a way to start. He didn't start with a cupboard bare, but he knew how to market those stars.
Oh, yeah. Well, look, he was, the NBA went through, and there's great athletes. There had been forever in the NBA, but you didn't know that. I mean, I don't know. I liked basketball. I watched them, but I mean, I never got the impression like he had. I never came away thinking of it like he thought of it. And no, I mean, no matter who was in the league, he would have made something of him. He happened to have a bonanza there. Absolutely. There's no question that when you had the Lakers and the Celtics coast to coast, and I covered a couple of those series, and they were just the greatest thing ever. I mean, it was such a great rivalry, such a thing that you just didn't want to miss a minute of any of it. Well, he was beaming. I remember him beaming. He'd walk around through a game and say hi and go down press row and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And I remember thinking, the guy looks like he's he's holding on to an electric cord. He knows exactly now. He sees it. All the stuff that he thought about, not me, that he thought about, that he knew, he was watching it. He was exactly watching it. And I'm sure the audience, I don't remember what those audiences were for those games, but I know that in his mind, this was his dream come true. That these were the most important guys. It wasn't me. It wasn't the only. It wasn't all the other things about the game. It was the guys on the court. He got it. And it seems so simple to say that, doesn't it? Well, yeah, the players shouldn't. It didn't. I mean, baseball and football went through this horrible, all kinds of stuff with their players and anger and everything else about it. And not Stern. He didn't look at it that way. He looked at it, yeah, these are the guys that are going to make this thing go. And he was completely correct, by the way. They are the guys who made it all go. Mm-hmm. That entire legacy lives on till today because of him. Because you understand, and I'm not sure where the league is at now, but just kind of go where you want to go and do, I'm just going to go and play. Oh, okay. But he saw it, felt it, knew it, and absolutely made it come true. I mean, absolutely got it to the point where it became this, what is it, a $5 billion a year business now? I mean, Jay, it was never, nobody ever would have said in the 80s, he's going to turn this thing into billions and billions of dollars worth of business. Nobody would have thought that. Even with the Lakers and the Celtics, even with it, you just didn't think like he did about things. People just didn't.
Terry Boers with Jonathan Hood here on ESPN 1000 and ESPN Apps. We talk about the life and times of David Stern. Terry, this is a hard one because you covered this as a writer and as a talk show host. So tell me how you feel now as far as your head and heart with Michael Jordan's first retirement. Does your head and heart say that MJ's leaving the sport was orchestrated somewhat by Commissioner Stern? Because even though Stern never talked about gambling on the record, never talked about that, but that was something, as you well know, because you were on those planes, that was very prevalent in the Jordan era. He was very competitive. Those guys like to gamble. Do you think there was any correlation after that first retirement with Stern and Jordan?
We've had so many arguments over this over the years, and guys who covered the NBA and were around it, and it seems to be a fairly even split about it. When you were looking for Michael, and they were on the East Coast somewhere, particularly New York and Philly. You could bet he was in Atlantic City. Mm-hmm. To take that to the bank, that's where he was. And yeah, I personally, I do. I think pressure was brought to bear because I'm not exactly sure what happened. What really was, if there was something that toppled it, that you said, finally, we can't do this anymore? Because I never could find out. I could never uncover if there's something that happened that absolutely pushed him out. Because you were looking at a piece of basketball history that a bunch of us were discussing this a couple weeks ago, looking at today's players and saying, do you realize that Jordan could have won 8 straight titles?
Right.
Do you realize that a guy that's 6'6" could have won 8 straight championships?
Well, Olajuwon would have to say something about that, right? I mean, that's the great unknown. We don't know what Rockets Bulls would have looked like, right?
That'd have been fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have.
That would have been fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's always, I think you'd if people were being honest with you and you asked a number of people who were around back then covering the league, and I think they would have said to you, that's probably a 50-50 bet. I mean, as much as he understood the power of the players, he also understood the power of if something really bad happened, if there was really problems with this. So I don't think we'll ever know. I'm not sure anybody will ever have enough to say one way or the other what happened. But I can tell you the suspicion was strong, always strong, that it was basically, because I remember calling people that I covered the teams with, and I said, what happened? What did he do this? And I mean, because I knew enough about him and enough the people we were on, I knew enough about him to know that Michael was what Michael was. He loved to gamble. I mean, his whole life was a high stakes game of whether it's basketball or anything else. That's what he liked to do, which technically is not against the law. So I could never get a grip on it. I don't recall anybody ever getting a grip on it. I mean, there's a lot of columns written speculation, a lot of guesswork. I don't like to do that, so I didn't, and I still don't know. And I don't know if there's that magic person out there that knows exactly what happened. But to me, it made no sense. It absolutely, you're right. Nobody was riding any higher and chance to win more, and that's all Michael was all about, was winning. I don't care what, that's what he was about. And walked away. Do you think we'll ever see that again?
No. My gut tells me that Commissioner Stern was a smart guy, Jordan was a smart guy, and Commissioner Stern frowned on the gambling because it was in excess. It was tons of money in Atlantic City because Jordan would do it on the golf course. I mean, the days of games, he'd be out there for 18 plus and out there gambling. And I don't think the NBA wanted to get anywhere close to Pete Rose in that controversy. Didn't want to be anywhere around it because Rose and gambling was synonymous. So I think that I could see Stern saying, "Take a year, go play baseball, do something else like that, and then come back." Yeah. Because in his marketing genius tells me, if you step away from the game, when you come back, you'll be even bigger and better. But we're going to give let you go away for a while, but then you can come back. But I can't allow you to keep doing this. That's what I think.
I will not dispute that. I mean, I think there were probably more that felt that way than the other way. I think there were very few that actually felt the guy was walking away from the game on his own. I mean, without any. Maybe we're going to sit down and have a visit here at some point. Maybe more than one visit. We're going to have to talk. But yeah, I think the last thing after the Pete Rose stuff and everything that had gone on, I think the last thing he wanted was another scandal. And Jay, I don't know if something major happened. I have no idea because it certainly was covered up well. But in terms of money spent and all the stuff that that's what Michael liked to do. That's what he did. That's what you're talking. That's exactly what he did. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that. If you look at it, did something else happen? Maybe. But sometimes, as you know, you get away with something, right? Nobody ever knows exactly what happened. And this is going to be one of those things, unless Michael has this somewhere down the road. Because I hope he's not watching his team play.
Clearly he's not. Terrible owner. Michael's terrible.
Oh, good God. But if you watch, if you think about it, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense any other way. I mean, there's just no way in my heart, and anybody else who knew him well's heart, that he would do that unless somebody said, you got to. I mean, I'm going to tell you just this. I'm going to just suggest go away, please. You need to. So I don't, but nobody could ever lay that hammer down and say, this is what happened. This is exactly what happened. This is why he had to do this. But we know it was to excess. We know it was a lifetime passion with Michael. He couldn't wait to beat you in any way he could beat you. You get whatever it was, he wanted to win. So, but yeah, I think the suspicion, there were certainly more who thought there was than who didn't think anything happened. Way more, just as you think. Just that same way. But if there's one guy that could talk him into doing it, that could convince him that I know Jordan respected, it was David Stern.
When's the new book coming out? Your tales of working with the Sheik. When is that? When is that coming out? 2021?
Nobody wants to ever hear from me again.
That's not true. That's not true. The wrestling fan is waiting. The wrestling fan wants to hear your thoughts on your time as a manager in the Cobo Hall with the Sheik. So do you have that coming? Is it 2021? When is it coming?
No, I have nothing. I'm completely doing nothing and enjoying every minute of it. I kind of like doing nothing. Once in a while I'll do something, but not very often. And I really no. I probably don't have one in me. And funny, nobody's called and said, "Hey, would you write another bad book?" I said, "Why not?"
I called you. I told you. I want the book. Selfishly, I want it.
I'll sell one copy. One copy.
Well, everybody, I tried. I tried to get another book out of Terry. You won't tell us about his days with the Sheik in the smoke-filled Cobo Hall. Oh well.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
That's what we wanted. Well, my friend, I'm glad you spent some time. I just wanted to get your thoughts because I know you were on the ground floor of all of this. The mustachio David Stern, when he first came in the league, to his legacy. It's quite a legacy, and I don't know if any commissioner currently or in the future can match what he was able to do. Putting teams in Florida, which I never thought I'd see, and 2 teams in Canada, Oklahoma City of all markets, Charlotte. He did it all. So that's it's quite a legacy he leaves as the former commissioner of the NBA.
Yeah, I think they're one of the most daunting legacies in anything in history. Any legacy in history. I think one of the more daunting ones is David Stern's. No question.
Terry, thank you so much, my friend. And by the way, I'm gonna call you again in June because there's a 10-part documentary. Did you see this on ESPN coming up?
I saw that.
Bulls?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So we're gonna have you on after it's all squared away, so we can find out who's lying.
I can help you there somewhat. Yeah.
You were there, so I could ask you what
just for the first one. I had to go and do the game because I didn't figure the guy who was doing it could get it done in time. So I did the first one, and after that we did go to every one of them. Though we were around every one of them. Yeah, we kind of were floating around, not quite like annoying I was when I was writing, but annoying nonetheless.
Yes, right, exactly. Well, I'm going to wait until June until that all comes out, and I want you to get the checklist out. Tell me who's lying. There's going to be some lying there, I believe, for sure. I'm looking forward to that.
And I'm sure there will be some, by the way. No doubt about that.
My friend, all the best, and I'll talk to you soon.
Back at you, my friend. Take care of yourself.